Have you ever been denied a loan and had absolutely no idea why? Or applied for a job that you were perfectly qualified for, only never to hear back? It might not have been a human that rejected you. In fact, there's a good chance that an algorithm made that call. That's right. While you were busy arguing with Siri about the weather, AI has quietly been deciding whether you get that apartment, qualify for that loan, or even how long you might spend in prison. Today, we're going to talk about how AI is secretly making legal decisions for you. We'll explore the bizarre reality where the judge, jury, and executioner might just be a few lines of code written by a 23-year-old addicted to energy drinks. So here's the deal. Artificial intelligence is everywhere in our legal and financial systems. It's like that time that I attended somebody's graduation and spent the entire time trying to get into the background of people's pictures. I apologize to the class of 2000. These systems are making thousands of decisions every single day that directly impact your life, determining your credit score, scanning your resume for keywords, and even trying to predict whether you're likely to commit a crime in the future. You heard that right. We're basically living in the Minority Report with just worse fashion and less Tom Cruise. Before we dive deeper, let me clarify something important. When I say AI, I don't mean sentient robots that are plotting humanity's demise. Sorry to disappoint the sci-fi fans, but we're talking about algorithms, essentially really fancy math equations that follow specific rules to make decisions based on patterns in the data. Think of them less like Skynet and more like a highly judgmental spreadsheet, kind of like your mother-in-law reimagined by Microsoft. Let's start with something that affects virtually everyone: credit scoring. So remember the Fair Credit Reporting Act? Back before disco was cool, Congress passed a law that gives you the right to know what's in your credit report and to dispute inaccurate information. The FCRA, or FCRA, is basically like that one friend who tells you when you have spinach in your teeth. Yeah, it's awkward, but at least you know that it's a problem. Here's the thing. FCRA was written decades before AI entered the picture. It's like trying to regulate TikTok dances based on the rules of ballroom dance. Today, advanced algorithms analyze hundreds of data points about you, beyond just whether you pay your bills on time. They might look at what time of day you make purchases, where you shop, what you buy, how often you check your credit score, even how quickly you scroll through terms and conditions. Yes, apparently AI thinks that people who actually read terms and conditions are more trustworthy. So the next time you want to improve your credit score, maybe spend a few hours reading how Facebook is allowed to sell your soul. But here's where it gets problematic. Let's talk about Maria. Maria has an excellent payment history, good income, and low debt. But when she applied for a mortgage, she was rejected because the algorithm had flagged her as high risk. Why? Because she frequently shopped at a discount store that happened to be in a lower income neighborhood. The AI had learned that people who shopped there defaulted more on loans. That wasn't assessing Maria's actual financial responsibility. That's just digital redlining with extra steps. And here's the kicker. When Maria asked why she had been denied, the bank couldn't explain it. The algorithm was a black box. Even the people who were using it didn't fully understand how it had reached its conclusions. This is what we call the explainability problem. It's like asking a magic 8 ball why it gave you a certain answer, and the magic 8 ball responding with a dissertation on fluid dynamics. Now, let's talk about how AI is transforming hiring. Companies are increasingly using AI to screen resumes and even conduct initial interviews. In theory, this should make hiring more efficient and objective. But in practice, well, Amazon built an AI hiring tool that ended up being biased against women. Their system was trained on patterns from successful hires over a 10-year period. And since the tech industry historically has been male dominated, the AI learned that being male was a predictor of success. It actually penalized resumes that contained the word women's, as in women's chess club or women's college. Amazon's engineers were basically like, we built an AI to help with hiring, and it turned out to be like your sexist uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. They tried to fix it, but ultimately they scrapped the whole project, which honestly is what you do when your robot turns out to be from the 1950s. But the problems don't stop at the resume stage. Some companies now use AI to analyze video interviews, studying candidates' facial expressions, their tone of voice, and word choice to determine if they would be a good fit. This raised so many red flags that Illinois has recently passed a law requiring companies to notify when AI is being used to analyze their video interviews. The law is basically saying, hey, if a robot is judging your smile, you should at least know it. And here's one of my favorite AI hiring fails. A company used an algorithm that highly valued candidates who had a specific keyword on the resume. The keyword? The candidate's name. That's right. The AI learned that people whose names appeared more often on their resumes were better candidates. This is less artificial intelligence and more artificial incompetence. Now for something more serious. AI in criminal justice. Across the United States, courts use risk assessment algorithms to help make decisions about setting bail, sentencing, parole. These algorithms analyze factors like age, criminal history, sometimes even zip code to predict how likely someone is to reoffend. One of the most famous examples is COMPASS, the Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanctions Tool. It's a really fancy name for an algorithm that guesses if you'll commit more crimes. In theory, these tools should make the justice system more fair by removing human bias from the equation. Humans are notoriously influenced by irrelevant factors. But in practice, well, a ProPublica investigation found that COMPASS was nearly twice as likely to falsely flag black defendants as future criminals compared to white defendants. It's like they digitize the biases of the criminal justice system, making discrimination more efficient. Nobody asked for racism as a service, but here we are. Now, defenders of this system point out that judges have always made subjective decisions, and they're not wrong. Studies have shown judges and parole boards issuing harsher sentences when they're hungry or tired. But there's something especially troubling about encoding biases into systems that claim to be objective. It's like saying, doctors used to prescribe cigarettes, so let's recommend our medical AI to recommend 2 packs a day. It's not exactly progress. And perhaps the wildest part, many judges don't fully understand how these algorithms work. They're making life-altering decisions based on risk scores that they can't really explain. Imagine being told that you have to spend 5 more years in prison because the proprietary algorithm said so. Nobody can explain to you exactly why. It's like being expelled from school because a magic 8 ball said, Outlook is not so good. Now for the part you've all been waiting for. AI fails that make you wonder if we should just go back to deciding important matters with a coin flip. Remember that time when an AI-powered camera system used in soccer was designed to automatically track the ball during matches? Well, during one particularly sunny day, it ignored the ball entirely and instead tracked the bald referee's head the entire time. Turns out the system was trained to follow round objects. And well, the referee's shiny bald head fit the bill perfectly. Somewhere a computer was thinking, look at that beautiful round bouncing ball. But my all-time favorite AI fail happened in the legal world. An law firm used an AI document review system to identify relevant documents in a case. Seems efficient, right? Well, the AI flagged thousands of documents as highly relevant to the case. The problem? They were recipes. Thousands and thousands of recipes. Apparently, the case involved food contamination, so AI decided any document containing food items was crucial evidence. The lawyers spent days sorting through meatloaf recipes to try to find actual evidence. As one attorney put it, we weren't building a case, we were building a cookbook. And let's not forget the time an AI prison monitoring system in the UK kept triggering false alarms because it couldn't tell the difference between prisoners fighting and prisoners playing chess. Turns out that the intense concentration involved in chess looked a lot like pre-fight tension to the AI. Bobby Fischer would have been spending a lot of time in solitary confinement. So, what's the real impact of all this AI decision making? On one hand, these systems have benefits. They can process vast amounts of data quickly. They don't get tired or hungry. They can potentially identify patterns that humans may miss. And they can make processes more efficient and accessible. But the downsides can be significant. Encoding bias that scales discrimination, the lack of transparency, the difficulty in challenging decisions, and the illusion of objectivity. That last point is particularly dangerous. When we tend to trust computer systems more than human judgment, it's called automation bias. We think, well, the computer said it, so it must be true. But here's the thing that we need to remember. AI systems learn from historical data, which means they're essentially looking in the rear view mirror to decide where we should go next. If our history contains bias and discrimination, which it absolutely does, then AI will learn to perpetuate those patterns unless we specifically design it not to do. It's like asking someone to predict the weather only by looking what happened yesterday. Sometimes it works, but when patterns change, you end up bringing an umbrella on a sunny day. Now, I don't want you to leave thinking AI in legal and financial systems is all doom and gloom. There are some promising applications that actually help people. For example, Just Fix NYC uses AI to help tenants in New York City fight unethical landlords. The system analyzes housing court records to identify patterns of negligence and harassment, and then helps tenants to build the case. And some credit scoring startups are using AI to help people who have been left out of traditional financial systems. By analyzing alternative data like bill payment history rather than credit card debt, they can offer loans to people who might otherwise be excluded. The common thread in these success stories: transparency, human oversight, and a clear focus on helping the underserved rather than making processes more efficient. So, what laws protect us from algorithmic discrimination? Well, not a lot of them, frankly. The Fair Credit Reporting Act that I mentioned earlier gives you the right to know what's in your credit report, but it doesn't really address algorithmic decision making. It's like your doctor telling you that your diagnosis came from WebMD, but refusing to tell you what symptoms they entered. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, is more advanced. It includes a right to explanation for algebraic decisions, but even that has limitations and loopholes. Here in the US, we're seeing a patchwork of state laws emerging. Illinois has its AI Video Interview Act. California has passed several data privacy laws. New York City has recently passed a law requiring bias audits for AI hiring tools. But overall, our legal framework is playing catch up. It's like trying to regulate cars after they've been on the road for decades. So, where does this all leave us? AI in legal and financial decision making isn't going away. In fact, it's only going to become more prevalent. The key challenge will be ensuring that those systems serve justice rather than efficiency, because an efficient injustice is still injustice. It just happens faster. We need systems that are transparent. You should know when AI is making decisions about you. Explainable. You should know why those decisions were made. Contestable. You should be able to challenge them. Auditable. Independent experts should be able to test them for bias. And perhaps most importantly, you need to recognize that some decisions are just too important to delegate entirely to algorithms. As technology writer Cory Doctorow puts it, treating societal problems as an engineering challenge to be solved with the right algorithm is a category error. Some issues require human judgment, empathy, and contextual understanding. So, what can you do about all this? First, be aware when you're applying for a job, loan, or interacting with the legal system. Ask whether automated systems are being used to make decisions about you. Second, demand transparency. Support legislation that requires companies and governments to disclose how they're using AI for important decisions. Third, challenge decisions. If you think an automated system has made an error, don't just accept it, ask for human review. Finally, stay informed. The technology and regulations around AI are evolving rapidly. Following them doesn't just make you tech savvy, it makes you a more empowered citizen. Because ultimately, AI isn't making legal decisions about us in secret because it's inherently sinister. It's because we're allowing it to happen. The question isn't whether AI will have a role in our legal and financial systems, it's whether that role will be transparent, fair, and ultimately accountable to the humans it affects.